Hey everybody, welcome back to the Crazy Monkey Midwest video blog. This is Matt from Crazy Monkey Midwest, and we're in the second video of our little three-part series. So if you didn't see video number one, no cheating, you know who you are. Go back and watch the first video. But we're in a three-part series, 3 questions that you need to answer for yourself if you want to make sure you're getting the maximum benefit out of your martial art training. And today we're going to get more specific. So before you give give some specific recommendations, and anytime you give specific recommendations, you need to ensure that they're being directed at the right people, the right audience. So just so we're not misunderstanding each other at all today, I'm going to be speaking primarily to recreational martial artists. So what is a recreational martial artist? Essentially, you're not getting paid to do martial art. It's not something that you have to do. So if you're a soldier, a cop, a security professional, a professional competitor, fighter, you have to train. It's part of your job. It's how you do your job. So you're not a recreational martial artist. Sure, you probably enjoy it, but it's not something that you just want to do. It's something you have to do. If you're a recreational martial artist, it means that it's something that you choose to do. It's something that you do above and beyond your job, your family commitments, anything else. So just so we know kind of who we're speaking to today, I'm talking to recreational martial artists. And again, nothing wrong with being a recreational martial artist. I consider myself a recreational martial artist, even though I teach and I get paid to teach. I still have a career and a day job, so it's optional for me, even though it's my passion and I love it. Doesn't mean that it's not really significant in my life just because I say I'm a recreational martial artist. So the second question in our 3-part series is, how much time do you have to train martial art? How much time do you intend to spend training martial art? Simplest way to approach this is just think of it, break it down in a given week. How many days per week are you going to train, and how long are you going to train each time? So this is really important to answer for yourself, because if you can answer the question of how much time do I have to train, then you can go about choosing the right type of training, the right type of training techniques, training methods, to ensure that you're getting the most out of that time investment. And it's my opinion that if you're training for 6 days a week for 2 hours a day, you can afford some liberties in your training that someone who's training maybe 2 or 3 times a week for an hour can't really afford. So there's some differences in how you can approach your training and how you should plan your training depending on how much time you have. So, things to think about. First and foremost, I am always of the belief that quality is more important than quantity. So the quality of your training and the quality of the technique that you're expressing while you're training is more important than the quantity or how long your training sessions are. So if you're training for really long training sessions and toward the tail end of those your technique's starting to suffer, you're getting sloppy because you're fatigued, you're not really getting any benefit out of that. So you need to know kind of where do we draw the line in terms of what's a good amount of time to train. And the way you draw the line is based on quality. If I can train for 45 minutes to an hour, and I know that I can put in a lot of quality work, but then beyond that point I start to go downhill, then that's where I cap it. I train for an hour or 45 minutes to an hour. If you're in really great shape and you can train for longer and not have that drop off in the quality of your technique, then sure, by all means, train for longer. Also, if you're learning martial art, if you're learning new things, understand that fatigue makes it harder for you to learn anything. So this is the issue that I have with people who do really long, really intense warm-ups, where it's almost like they're turning the warm-up into a conditioning workout. And again, it's great if you've got a class full of people who are athletes who are in awesome shape and they're not going to be cashed after the warm-up, then fine, do what you want to do. But for the recreational martial artist, and especially for somebody who's just starting out, you're probably not in that good a shape yet. And if you're cashed after the warm-up, well, then you're not going to be able to learn anything after that point. So it's kind of the issue that I have with long, kind of drawn-out, intense warm-ups. So Fatigue makes it harder to learn anything, and fatigue makes it harder for you to get quality work in. So you have to manage fatigue and train, structure your training so that you can manage your energy output. That's really important. So quality over quantity. Also, consistency trumps intensity. And to be honest, consistency, in my opinion, trumps just about everything. It's more important than how good your instructor is. It's more important than how effective your art is that you're training. The bottom line is, if you're not training consistently, then none of those things matter. So consistency is the most important thing. So how do you structure your training, both in terms of the amount of intensity that you apply and the amount of time that you devote to it, so that you can train consistently? And I think back to when I was fresh out of college. I was just starting my job. I was living at home, so didn't have a house to take care of, certainly didn't have a family, and I was training 2 hours a day at least, a lot of times doing conditioning after that, so 2 or more hours a day for probably 4 to 6 days per week. And I look back at that now and go, man, that's kind of crazy. But contrast that with now, in 35, I have a family, I have a career, certainly can't devote 2 hours a day to training, and definitely not 5 to 6 days a week of that. And the thing that strikes me as thing that was true then and is true now is, regardless of when I was training 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, I still felt like it wasn't enough. I still felt like I didn't have enough time to train. And certainly now, given my circumstances, I also feel like I don't have enough time to train everything that I want to train. And so I guess the dirty little secret is, you will never have enough time to train everything that you want to train, to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish. It's just life. You're never going to have enough time. So you have to prioritize. You have to decide what's most important for me to focus on. And rather than setting a maximum in terms of the number of training sessions, the amount of time that you have to train, and saying, okay, I'm going to shoot for training 5 days a week for an hour a day. Rather than setting a maximum, because we all know life's going to get in the way and life's going to happen. And so if I say, I want to always train 5 days a week, next week, but like this week, for example, my son is sick. So there goes several of my training sessions and not really getting a lot of training done this week. That's what happens. So if you're setting a maximum and you're saying, well, I want to train 5 days a week, and then something happens and you're consistently not able to get up to that point, you're going to just disappoint yourself and you're going to feel kind of defeated by it. So my approach is to do the opposite. So rather than setting a maximum amount of training, set a minimum for yourself. Set a minimum that is reasonable, that you can reasonably expect to complete, X number of training sessions, X amount of time every week, and I know I can do it week in, week out. So maybe, and I think a good minimum to shoot for is 2 training sessions a week for about an hour each time. I found that if you're training quality, quality time, then that's enough time to make real progress if you're focused and you're putting in good quality training. Less than that, it's really hard to make progress. More than that, certainly good, but that's generally a good minimum to shoot for. And I think 2 hours a week is pretty reasonable. It's pretty easy to accomplish that. Again, if you can do more, great. But again, it's about setting a minimum so that I don't get to the end of the week feeling defeated that, I didn't do what I set out to do. If you set a minimum for yourself that you're always able to accomplish that, then you're going to feel good about it. You're going to say, wait, I got my training in. Maybe it wasn't as much as I wanted to do, but I got it done. And I have to give a shout out to, there's an author named James Clear, C-L-E-A-R, who writes a lot about this kind of thing. And I've learned a ton from his work, and it's really helping me plan my training and kind of save my sanity, I guess, in terms of setting reasonable expectations for training. So you have to check out his work. It's really great stuff. So consistency is more important than intensity. So the last thing, the next thing that I want to talk about is the relationship between the amount of variety that you can have in your training and the amount of time that you have to train. So in my opinion, it's kind of a one-to-one relationship. The more time you have to train, then the more variety you can have in your training, the more kind of different things you can work on and reasonably expect to improve upon. So going back to, for example, my time of training 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, I was cross-training in probably at least 3 or 4 different martial arts. I was learning Jeet Kune Do and Kali and Thai boxing and grappling and doing all these different things and making some progress, because I had a lot of time to do it and I could kind of have more variety. Nowadays, don't have that much time, and so I have to be much more narrow in my focus of what's really important for me to work on and understand that the other things are going to have to be put by the wayside. So the less time you have to train, the less variety you can afford to have in your training, and the more you need to narrow your focus on what's really important, what you really want to get good at, basically. And so let's talk about kind of the techniques that you focus on, given that maybe you have a smaller amount of time to train. Maybe like I said, that minimum of about 2 training sessions a week, 2 hours a week, an hour each day. So my argument is, if you're training 2 hours a week, you need to focus on fundamentals, and that's just about all you're going to be able to focus on. Really not going to have a lot of time or a lot of flexibility in learning kind of more what I would call attribute-based or more advanced techniques. I would say, for me, given the amount of time I have to train between working a full-time job, taking care of my family, training clients, it's definitely focused on fundamentals. It's just how it is. I know that there's a lot of other things, like I said, that I want to work on, but I'm just not going to have time to do it. And so my default is fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals. And so whatever art you're training in, or whatever type of program, whether it's a stand-up, boxing, kickboxing program, a grappling program, whatever it is, there are fundamental skills within that are going to give you the best bang for your buck in terms of your time and training investment. And if you have a smaller amount of time to train, you have to focus on the fundamentals and really put those other things aside, at least for now. What's a good example of that? I think a good example of that is working on your defense. Defense is a fundamental, and there are certain types of defense that are more fundamental. These would be things that I consider to be non-attribute based, and we'll talk about that probably in a separate blog because it kind of needs its own, it's kind of a topic unto itself. So focus on things that are simple, fundamental, non-attribute based. And so why is focusing on your defense a really good idea? Well, it's a great short-term investment, because if you work on your defense, you're going to be able to stay safer in your training, particularly if you're sparring or doing any kind of live, performance-based training. So focusing on your defense is going to keep you healthy and keep you safe today. It's also going to keep you training longer, because you're going to stay healthy for longer. You're going to be able to put in more time and eventually develop the attributes and the ability to do the more advanced or more fancy tricks or techniques that you don't really have time to practice today. So focusing on what can I do today, what's a good investment for me today in terms of techniques, fundamental techniques, working your defense, not being so concerned with attribute-based tactics and techniques, so that you can stay in the game and perform well today and perform well in the short term, and then string together more and more good training sessions where you're staying safe, staying healthy, so that eventually, because you're putting out a lot of time on the mat and staying healthy and staying safe, then you can eventually develop the attributes and develop the ability to do the more advanced stuff. So something to think about with that. I hope you got something out of this blog. If you have any questions, or if you have suggestions or topics that you'd like me to talk about in a future blog, you can reach me through Facebook, Crazy Monkey Midwest Martial Arts. You can find us on Facebook. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can find us on our website, crazymonkeymidwest.com. There's the contact form there. You can fill that out. Let me know if you want to know more about what we do. So I hope you got something out of the blog. Stay tuned for the next one, and best of luck to you in your training.